Hello brothers, and welcome to Sigma Grandpa Channel. The hardest childhoods don't always create broken men. Sometimes they create the men the world can never quite figure out. What if the quietest man in the room isn't quiet because he's shy, but because life forced him to master silence long before he ever learned confidence? What if the boy everyone overlooked wasn't weak at all, but was slowly being shaped by hardships most people could never survive? Psychologists have long observed that childhood adversity can leave lasting marks on personality. While it can cause deep emotional wounds, it can also forge remarkable coping skills, heightened awareness, and fierce independence in some individuals. The same storm that sinks one ship can teach another how to navigate impossible seas. That's why some men walk through life differently. They don't seek attention. They don't rush to explain themselves. They don't panic when they're alone. People call them mysterious, emotionally distant, or even intimidating. But very few ever stop to ask the question that matters most. What happened before they became that man? Today's video isn't about glorifying pain or pretending every difficult childhood creates a so-called Sigma male. It doesn't. But for some boys, years of chaos become an unexpected training ground, shaping habits, instincts, and ways of thinking that most people completely misunderstand. And don't worry. This isn't one of those videos that blames everything on "Daddy didn't buy me a bicycle." We're diving much deeper than that. By the end of this video, you'll discover 20 shocking ways brutal childhoods can quietly transform ordinary boys into men who move through the world by a completely different set of rules. Some of these truths are uncomfortable, some are heartbreaking, and a few may completely change the way you see the silent men around you. Let's begin. Number 1, they learn to read a room before anyone speaks. Some boys don't grow up learning how to play the room. They grow up learning how to survive it. When a home is filled with unpredictable moods, raised voices, silent treatment, or sudden explosions of anger, a child quickly discovers that paying attention isn't optional, it's protection. He starts noticing the smallest details that everyone else ignores. The sound of footsteps in the hallway, the way someone shuts a door, a forced smile that doesn't reach the eyes, or a change in someone's tone can tell him more than words ever could. Over the years, this constant awareness becomes automatic. He doesn't even realize he's doing it anymore. While others are listening to conversations, he's reading body language, facial expressions, and emotional shifts that happen in seconds. He can often sense tension before anyone else notices there's a problem. People later describe him as highly observant, emotionally intelligent, or even mysterious because he seems to understand situations without needing long explanations. The truth is far less glamorous. This ability wasn't learned in a classroom or from a self-help book. It was built during years when missing the warning signs came with consequences. That is why many men shaped by difficult childhoods don't just hear what people say, they notice what people accidentally reveal. And more often than not, those silent signals tell the real story. Number 2, they become experts at leaving no evidence. Some boys grow up believing that every small mistake will be remembered, criticized, or used against them later. In homes where blame comes quickly, they learn that the safest way to live is to leave as little behind as possible. They clean up their own mess before anyone notices. They hide their feelings. They stop talking about their dreams, their fears, and even their successes. The less people know, the fewer opportunities they have to hurt them. Over time, this becomes much more than a survival habit. It becomes part of who they are. As adults, They naturally keep a low profile. They don't overshare on social media. They don't tell everyone their next move. They rarely feel the need to explain themselves or seek approval. While others announce every plan, they quietly get to work and let the results do the talking. People often mistake this behavior for being secretive or emotionally distant. Some even think they're playing mind games. In reality, many of these men simply learned that privacy brings peace. They've experienced what happens when too many people know too much. Their silence isn't about creating mystery. It's about protecting what matters. They understand that not every opinion deserves access to their life, and not every chapter needs an audience. Sometimes the strongest move is simply keeping your story in your own hands until it's ready to be told. Number 3, they stop expecting rescue. Every child begins life believing that when things go wrong, someone will step in and make them right. A parent, a relative, a teacher, or another trusted adult is supposed to provide safety. But for some boys, that moment never comes. They wait, they hope, and eventually they realize they are facing life's hardest moments on their own. That realization changes something deep inside them. Instead of asking, "Who can help me?" they begin asking, "What can I do?" They stop waiting for perfect timing, perfect support, or perfect conditions. They learn to solve problems with whatever they have because they have no other choice. As they grow older, this mindset follows them everywhere. When life becomes difficult, they don't immediately look for someone to carry the weight. Their first instinct is to think, adapt, and keep moving. It isn't because they believe they are stronger than everyone else. It's because experience taught them that depending too heavily on others can sometimes lead to disappointment. This kind of independence often looks effortless from the outside, but it usually has painful roots. It was never about wanting to do everything alone. It was about discovering, much earlier than most people, that the person they could count on the most was themselves. That lesson never truly leaves them. Number 4, silence becomes their laboratory. For some boys, silence is never empty. It becomes the one place where nobody can interrupt them, criticize them, or tell them who they should be. When home feels unpredictable or emotionally exhausting, being alone is often the only time they can think clearly. Instead of fearing those quiet moments, they begin using them to observe, reflect, and make sense of the world around them. While other children may spend every free moment chasing noise or attention, these boys often develop a habit of studying people from a distance. They notice who changes when certain people enter the room. They notice who keeps promises and who only makes them. They notice how fear changes behavior, how kindness earns trust, and how pride causes people to make poor decisions. Without realizing it, they are collecting lessons that no classroom ever teaches. Years later, that same habit makes them appear thoughtful and difficult to surprise. They rarely react without first considering what is really happening beneath the surface. Their mind has been trained to slow down, observe, and connect patterns before reaching conclusions. People often assume they were simply born wise or unusually mature. They weren't. Much of that insight was developed during countless quiet hours when silence became their teacher. In those moments, they learned that understanding people is often more powerful than trying to impress them, and that lesson stays with them for life. Number 5, they develop an internal lie detector. One of the first lessons a boy learns in a difficult childhood is that words can sound comforting while meaning very little. He hears promises that are never kept, apologies followed by the same behavior, and kind sentences that disappear the moment circumstances change. After enough disappointment, he stops treating words as proof. Instead, he begins paying attention to patterns. Without realizing it, his mind starts comparing what people say with what they consistently do. He notices the friend who always has an excuse but never shows up. He notices the person who talks about loyalty, but disappears when things become difficult. He notices the charming smile that only appears when someone wants a favor. Over time, these small observations sharpen into an instinct that is difficult to fool. As an adult, this can make him seem unusually cautious. He rarely gets swept away by smooth talk or grand promises, because he has learned that character is revealed through repeated actions, not impressive speeches. While others may be captivated by confidence, he quietly waits to see whether confidence is backed by consistency. This doesn't mean he believes everyone is dishonest. It means trust is earned, not automatically given. Once someone proves they are genuine, he can be deeply loyal. But until actions match the words, he keeps his guard up. His greatest confidence isn't in what people say. It's in what their behavior quietly reveals over time. Number 6, they quietly build the childhood they never had. Perhaps the most remarkable transformation doesn't happen during childhood at all. It happens years later, when a boy grows into a man and makes a decision that no one else can make for him. Instead of spending the rest of his life trapped by what he lost, he begins building the very life he once wished someone had given him. If he grew up surrounded by shouting, he values peace. If promises were constantly broken, he becomes someone whose word can be trusted. If he rarely felt safe, he creates a home where others can finally breathe. The pain doesn't disappear, but it no longer gets to decide the direction of his future. This is what many people never notice. They see a calm man, a dependable friend, a loving father, or a loyal partner, but they don't see the invisible choices behind that character. Every act of patience, every honest conversation, and every promise he keeps is a quiet refusal to repeat the patterns that once hurt him. Breaking the cycle is never easy. There are days when old memories try to pull him backward, when familiar habits whisper that change is impossible. Yet he keeps choosing differently. Again and again, that is real strength. Not pretending the past never happened, and not allowing it to become an excuse for harming others. The greatest victory is creating a future that looks nothing like the past, proving that where life begins does not have to be where it ends. Number 7, they stop chasing emotional highs. A difficult childhood can change the way a boy understands excitement. When arguments, broken trust, or constant uncertainty become part of everyday life, intense emotions stop feeling exciting and start feeling exhausting. He begins to notice that every emotional high is often followed by an emotional crash. Over time, he stops craving drama because he has already had more than enough of it. As he grows older, this shapes the kind of life he wants. While others may be drawn to constant excitement, endless attention, or relationships filled with emotional ups and downs, he finds himself searching for something much simpler: peace. A quiet evening, an honest conversation, a stable routine, and people who keep their word become far more valuable than moments of temporary excitement. This is one reason people often mistake him for being cold or emotionally distant. The truth is that he isn't avoiding feelings. He's avoiding unnecessary chaos. He has learned from experience that not every emotional reaction deserves a response, and not every conflict deserves his energy. His calmness isn't a lack of passion. It's the result of understanding how expensive constant emotional turmoil can be. He knows that peace is not boring, it is powerful. After growing up where calm moments were rare, he learns to protect them with everything he has. For him, a peaceful life isn't a luxury. It's a victory that was earned the hard way. Number 8, they master the skill of watching without participating. Some boys discover very early that getting involved in every situation comes with a price. In homes where emotions change without warning, speaking at the wrong time, taking sides, or trying to fix every conflict can make things worse. So they develop a different habit. They watch first. They listen more than they speak. They learn that observation often reveals what action cannot. As the years pass, this way of thinking becomes second nature. They don't rush into conversations just to be heard, and they don't feel pressured to have an opinion on everything. Instead, they quietly collect information. They notice who interrupts others, who always wants control, who stays calm under pressure, and who changes their personality depending on who's around. These details help them understand people far better than first impressions ever could. Because of this, they often surprise others with their timing. They may stay silent while everyone else is reacting, only to speak when they have something that truly matters. Their words carry weight because they aren't thrown around carelessly. Some mistake this patience for hesitation or a lack of confidence. In reality, it's neither. They simply learned that reacting too quickly can cloud good judgment. By watching before participating, they avoid being pulled into unnecessary drama, emotional traps, and impulsive decisions. Their greatest strength isn't always what they say, it's what they notice long before everyone else does. Number 9, they stop measuring love by words. For some boys, one of the hardest lessons of childhood is discovering that words can sound warm while actions feel cold. They hear, "I love you," yet they experience neglect. They receive promises that are forgotten by the next day. They are told everything will change, only to watch the same cycle repeat itself. Little by little, they begin to understand that love is not proven by what someone says, but by what someone consistently does. That lesson stays with them for years. As adults, they pay close attention to the small things that most people overlook. They notice who checks in without being asked, who keeps showing up when life gets difficult, and who remains loyal when there is nothing to gain. To them, these quiet actions carry far more weight than the grandest declaration. This often makes them seem cautious in relationships. They are not easily swept away by charming words or dramatic displays of affection because they have learned that emotions can be performed, but consistency is much harder to fake. When they finally trust someone, that trust runs deep because it is built on evidence rather than hope. They don't expect perfection, but they do value honesty, reliability, and effort. In the end, they judge love the same way they judge character, not by the promises people make, but by the choices they continue to make when no one is watching. Number 10, their mind separates emotion from decision. A brutal childhood can teach a boy something most people don't learn until much later in life. Strong emotions don't always lead to good decisions. When growing up in constant stress, he often has no choice but to think clearly while feeling afraid, disappointed, or overwhelmed. Life doesn't pause just because his emotions are running high. Problems still have to be solved, responsibilities still have to be handled, and tomorrow still arrives. Over time, his mind begins to separate what he feels from what he needs to do. That doesn't mean he stops having emotions. It means he learns not to let every emotion take control of his actions. He may feel angry, but he chooses not to react in the heat of the moment. He may feel hurt, but he refuses to make permanent decisions based on temporary pain. This self-control often confuses people. Some assume he doesn't care because he isn't overly expressive. Others think he is emotionally distant because he stays calm when everyone else is losing control. What they don't see is the discipline behind that calm. He has spent years teaching himself that reacting is easy, but responding wisely takes strength. That habit becomes one of his greatest advantages. While others allow emotions to steer their choices, he gives himself time to think. He understands that feelings deserve to be acknowledged, but they should never be allowed to become the driver of his life. Number 11, They develop an almost unfair patience. Patience is usually seen as a personality trait, but for some boys, it begins as a survival skill. Growing up in a difficult environment often means waiting for things that should have come naturally: peace, encouragement, stability, or simply a good day. They learn early that complaining doesn't make time move faster, and frustration doesn't change reality. So they adapt by becoming patient in ways that most people never have to. As they grow older, this patience shows up in every part of their lives. They don't panic because success takes longer than expected. They don't quit after one setback or abandon a goal because the results aren't immediate. They understand that meaningful change rarely happens overnight because they've already lived through seasons where progress came one small step at a time. This can make them incredibly difficult to discourage. While others lose motivation after a few failures, they keep moving forward with quiet determination. They don't need constant reassurance because they have already learned how to keep going without it. People often mistake this patience for passiveness, but there is a big difference. They are not waiting because they are afraid to act. They are waiting because they understand that timing matters. They know that rushing can destroy opportunities that would have grown stronger with time. For them, patience isn't simply the ability to wait. It's the discipline to keep believing in the process without letting disappointment convince them to give up too soon. Number 12, they become comfortable being misunderstood. Most people spend a large part of their lives trying to explain themselves. They want others to understand their intentions, believe their side of the story, and see them in the best possible light. But for some boys who grow up in difficult homes, that desire slowly disappears. They discover early that telling the truth doesn't always change someone's opinion. They learn that some people have already decided who you are before you even speak. After enough experiences of being blamed unfairly, ignored, or judged without being heard, they stop wasting energy trying to convince everyone. Instead, they focus on living in a way that speaks louder than any explanation ever could. They understand that not every misunderstanding needs correcting, and not every opinion deserves a response. As adults, this often makes them seem unusually calm when others criticize them. While many people rush to defend themselves, they stay quiet because they know arguments don't always produce understanding. Sometimes they only produce more noise. That doesn't mean hurtful words never affect them. They do. The difference is that they no longer let every false opinion pull them into a battle. They have learned that peace is sometimes found in letting people believe what they want, while continuing to live with integrity. Ironically, the less they chase approval, the more authentic they become. They stop performing for an audience and start living according to their own values. That quiet confidence is often mistaken for mystery, when in reality, it is the result of learning one powerful lesson. Not everyone has to understand you for you to know who you are. Conclusion. A brutal childhood doesn't automatically create a strong man, and it certainly doesn't guarantee someone will become what people call a Sigma male. Pain affects everyone differently. Some people are broken by it, while others slowly rebuild themselves into someone stronger than they ever imagined. What matters is not the hardship itself, but the choices made afterward. The men we've talked about today aren't defined by their scars. They're defined by what they did with them. They learned to observe instead of react, to value actions over empty words, to stay patient when life tested them, and to create peace where there was once chaos. Their greatest strength isn't that they never suffered. It's that they refused to let suffering become their identity. If there's one lesson to take away from this video, it's this. Your past may explain you, but it doesn't have to control you. No matter where you started, you always have the power to decide the kind of man you become. Real strength isn't found in pretending the pain never existed. It's found in rising above it without losing your character. If you enjoyed this video and found these insights valuable, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into human psychology, resilience, and personal growth. If any of these points resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might encourage someone else who is fighting a battle no one can see. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and never let your past have the final word.